next up is someone that may be already familiar to you if you were here last year. She does some stand-up. She was on the TEDx Columbia stage, which is where I started stalking her immediately. She is well loved in the community, and I am so glad to introduce to some and say hello again to our friend, Miss Rachal Hatton.
Thank you. I'm going to break the rules, if that's all right with you, because I don't like to stand in one place. I like to move. Also, thank you for the poem. The only poem that I reread every night is The Moon, and the only poem that I live each day are trees. So I was the nerdy kid who, in middle school, did all the extra credit. Anybody else the kid who does all the extra credit? So I only passed this one class, biology, because I learned all the identifiers of trees. I can tell you any tree by its leaf. Yeah. I don't have to have that app. I also can, tell you how old a tree is by looking at its rings. Does anybody here have a happy place? Yeah, you do it. Everybody should. My happy place happened to be a tree. Go figure, right? So my happy place was a tree. I grew up on a mini farm that was about 5 acres, and at the back corner, a stream started. And beside that stream, there was a little wedge of woods, and a tree had fallen there, and it was about 5 feet up off the ground, and I used to be a lot nimbler than I am now, and so I would climb up on it and sit about halfway on the trunk that was like 5 feet above the ground, and I'd sit cross-legged, and I'd read books and do all my extra credit. And, that's really important to have when you're the nerdy kid who everybody makes fun of in middle school. My parents moved away from there, and I'll never see that tree again, but it's okay because I found another one. I found another one that, happened to be in my boyfriend's neighbor's backyard. And it was in a wedge of his backyard that he never went to, much like the place that I, grew up. And we would sit on the back porch and we'd watch, the woodpeckers and the owls and the squirrels have fights, and we would, it was the only shade because he had already lost 2 100-year-old oaks. So when we noticed that the woodpecker had a hole started, we didn't panic too much at first, and then it got bigger, and the neighbor didn't do anything, and we knew something was going to happen soon. And so one day I got a call at work, and I was summoned home because the biggest branch had fallen all in our backyard. Our whole 1/4-acre lot was filled with tree. Now, it didn't hit the house, and it didn't hit the shed, but it did rip all the power lines out for the block. And when it fell, all the neighbors who were home fled out onto their, front porches because they thought there had been an explosion, Have you ever been by a tree that fell, especially like a skyscraper tall tree? Well, we have caverns in our yard now, and we'll have grass that probably won't grow back for a while. But when I got home and we walked out and assessed the damage, it was like being in a canopy. It was like we had climbed all the way to the top of this tree, and this huge branch was almost like its own tree. It was that big. And we still saw squirrels who were fleeing from their nests, and there were birds who kept lighting on it like it was still in air. And I put my hand on the side of it, and I swear I could feel that tree. And it was still connected by just a little splinter to the main tree. And when we decided it was going to be too long for the tree service to come, my boyfriend, who collects tools, much like I collect stories, had 3 chainsaws and reciprocating saws and all kinds of things. And so we were hacking at it. And I didn't realize I had a thing for lumberjacks until that moment. And it was funny, and it was hot, and it was grueling work, And we made something beautiful out of that tree. And even though I had to stop because every time we sawed at a part of it, we could feel it 4 branches over in every part of the tree. Like, it's all connected. Now we have a bunch of stumps around a fire pit, and we have enough firewood to keep our home warm probably until 2020. Trees teach us a lot of things. They teach us about permanence, they teach us about impermanence, they teach us about community, and they teach us about letting go. The tree that I love, well, it won't be a tree much longer. It won't become paper, and it won't have a story that lives outside of this night. But because we're not necessarily the best yard keepers, it has a baby that was growing in my tomato patch. So maybe my tree will someday see children grow up in our neighborhood, just like this 100-year-old tree happened to predate our neighborhood. And, it was a pea field. And I'm sure that at one point, the tree that I loved was also intruding in someone's tomato patch or pea patch. Thank you very much. I hope you have a good night.